Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third event in the Advice and Perspective series this summer. My name is Aaliyah Castleberry, and I'm a career coach within the Center for Career Development. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Lisa, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Famularo, and I am also a career coach in the Center for Career Development. We're really excited about this summer series, focusing on advice and perspective from our outstanding UConn alumni, and we know that we have some great advice coming up today. So I will turn it back over to Aaliyah to kick us off.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. So thank you all for joining us. So the Advice and Perspective series this summer is an opportunity for UConn alumni to share lessons they have learned along the way since graduating with current UConn students. All events in the series this summer are featuring Black alumni to speak about their career goals as professionals and just lessons that they have learned along the way. So we're very excited to welcome Chauntay Mickens today, who will speak about her career journey thus far and some knowledge that she'd like to share with us today. So as I said, this is the third event within the series, and the structure of this event is a fireside chat. So we'll spend about 40 minutes or so having conversation, followed by a 20-minute Q&A. So as you have questions, please feel free to put them in the questions panel, and we will answer them at the conclusion of this event. This session will also be recorded and be available on YouTube following this event. So now, after I've covered all those logistics, we'll get started. So Chauntay, please tell us a bit about yourself and your career journey.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here today and talk to everyone. And thank you, ladies, for setting this up. I think this is a really important conversation to have, especially right now as we're the country is opening back up after COVID. Again, my name is Chauntay Mickens. I was a UConn undergraduate student from the class of 2010. While there, I was a sociology major as well as a African-American studies major. And so while at UConn, I was on the volleyball team. I was on full scholarship, so that was a big commitment of my just time and efforts while there. However, I also was able to juggle a full load as being a full-time student. So I was raised in the DC area, and after graduation, I moved back home. So I moved back to DC. My parents no longer lived here, so when I moved back by myself, and I had to really find a job and find somewhere to live and figure things out. While I've been in DC, I've worked mostly in nonprofit. DC is a big nonprofit government, Capitol Hill type of town as far as careers and occupations. There's also a big kind of tech hub here. We have Amazon coming very soon to the DC area. While I've been here, I ended up going to Georgetown. I got a master's from there, which I'll talk a little bit about in a few. But again, super happy to be in the call. And I was telling the ladies before we started that I was very nervous because I'm just I'm not I'm not done yet. I still have so much more to do in my career, but I definitely want to share with you what I've learned along the way, since it's been about almost 11 years since I graduated, which is crazy and scary because it feels like it's yesterday. But definitely want to just give some insight and advice of kind of past mistakes and how I was able to recover for them, and how now I feel really comfortable and I feel like I have a very thriving and exciting career. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And absolutely, you said you're not done. You have so much more to do, but you've already done so much over the last 11 years plus, since 11 years since you graduated, but 11 years even when you were in school. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to focus on building wealth as a topic of our conversation today.
Yeah, so I guess I want to kind of identify what we mean by building wealth. I don't necessarily mean I'm not a wealthy person. I do okay for myself, and I figured out a way to be able to make sure that, I don't have kids yet, but my kids will be able to, have that generational wealth. So that's something I'm working on now with my partner. However, I think that I'm definitely talking about that professional wealth and that social capital that is not always, discussed. And I think right now is a perfect opportunity for people just to start having these conversations and understanding what that means. I think it's important because right now I'm a millennial and you guys may be Gen Z or different generations, but there's definitely this thing where we have this billions of dollars of student loan debt, and we're kind of in this state of emergency. And so I think it's really important to define what you want to do with your degree early on, so that when you graduate, you're not just leaving UConn or any other institution just with a large amount of student loan debt, and you kind of have a plan of how you can pay that off and also be able to build and have a successful and happy and thriving life. So definitely excited to have this conversation, and want to kind of break down what some solutions that I think would be really helpful to help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also resonate with your story as well. I was also a sociology major, graduated with loans, had to figure it out as well. So I definitely align with you on that. You mentioned cultural capital, and I know that's sometimes a big term. So tell me a little bit about how you define cultural capital or professional wealth.
So I will say this, I currently work for an organization called MLT. It's called Management Leadership for Tomorrow. It's a nationwide nonprofit. It's based here in the DC area. However, one of the big, our mission and our goal is to help empower Black, Native, and Latinx folks how to build generational wealth, how to figure out this economic divide, how to figure out economic mobility. And so through our studies and research, we've found that 60% of college graduates of color are underemployed or unemployed. And when I say underemployed, that means that they're graduating and they're going to jobs that did not require a degree. So again, they have this massive amount of student loan debt. They get a job that didn't require them to have a degree. And so it's kind of like, doesn't make sense, does it? So that's why I think it's important that we have this conversation to figure out what type of degrees could be associated with economic mobility, finding a job right when you finish college, and what steps you can take to make sure that you have a gainful employment when you're done at UConn. So I think when we talk about the social capital component, a lot of students of color, we don't have this built-in network. We don't have this built-in kind of wealth that our family is passing down to us that enables us to get a internship that's unpaid and not have to freak out like, I can't take this internship because it's not paid, and I have to be able to pay my tuition and pay for housing and stuff. So I'm not saying that's every single person of color, but a study shows that it's a majority of people of color don't have this built-in network. And so again, a lot of our white peers, their parents may have connections to get them into an internship that is actually a rotational program. So they have a job waiting for them when they graduate, or they may, again, their parents have the funds where they can take time to do something that's unpaid and really gain that, that experience that is needed to really build your career. So we have to kind of break down what that looks like and understand why there's this economic divide, in how, although somebody can have a bachelor's degree or come from a four-year institution, where they're still graduating and they're still in the same boat they could have been in if they did not go to school. And I'm a huge advocate for people going to college. So I'm not speaking against that part, but it's just, how do we navigate college where it benefits us? And how do we navigate college so that when we're done, we actually can find a position of employment that can give us growth, that can give us economic mobility, and that can also give us other resources.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. I think that's also something that is important for us to consider too as a career center, is how are we helping students have those conversations? Are we having those conversations? Do we provide platforms for students to have an understanding of how to navigate college and how to find that position? And I think we're working more closely on getting that interwoven into the curriculum and academics, but it's definitely a process of getting that in to the system. And it's like, unless you seek out those relationships and unless you have those people to tell you those things, it's really difficult to kind of know what to do and what steps to take. So how essential do you think cultural capital is to the career development process?
I think it's like so important. I can use myself as an example. I graduated from UConn. I had played a sport, so I did have that network of folks that, I played sports with and had coaches and other mentors. But I found myself all of a sudden my spring of senior year, and everyone, we're preparing for graduation. Everyone's excited, and I'm like, what the hell am I about to do, like after school? And so I went into this panic and frenzy. I think it was probably February of senior year, in which I'm just trying to, am I going to take an internship? Am I going to try to find a full-time job? And so I'm just applying to anything and everything. And that tactic really doesn't work. You have to have some targets, and you have to have goals in place, and you have to understand what you want to do. And I think it's just kind of this myth that when you go to college, you find yourself and you figure out who you are and what you want to do. And maybe on a personal level, I think that's true, but unless you really are focused on what profession you want to do pretty early on, that can kind of get lost in the sauce, right? I always tell people, as even before you start freshman year, as early as you can, start to think about what you want to do with your life, what careers, path that you would like to have, who are people that are doing those careers that you can request help from or mentorship from. What careers are out there? Because I think a lot of times it's kind of like, especially if you're a first generation student, your parents are kind of just like doctor, lawyer, I don't know, like the main just nurse, like it's just very like the, not basic jobs because they're amazing careers, but it's just very much like we're told there's only this few pockets of occupations out there, which there are millions of occupations, and there are people who are out here making a lot of money in careers that we've never heard about. And so I think that we have to, it's on us, yes, to definitely do the research and start asking those questions. But I think at an institutional level, and Aaliyah, you mentioned that you guys were going to start implementing this, and I'm sure you guys already have, but you guys are going to start making sure that students are well aware and informed of different opportunities that are around. And I think as the country starts to change and evolve, it's going to be up to, just as a larger institution of just Americans, we're going to have to start having those conversations too. But again, it's really up to us to figure that out right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. It is something definitely that we're continuously working on, and really wanting to have more of those conversations with students too. But you mentioned something earlier that kind of stood out to me. So you mentioned that sometimes students are in a situation where they're first generation, or they might not be able to afford to get an unpaid internship as a result of not really having that cultural capital or network. So what advice do you have for students who might not be able to seek out an unpaid internship? How can they still get some experience within their field, or just do some career exploration?
I think that's a really good question. I think there's actually a lot of programs and nonprofits that are out there right now, things that have existed since I was in undergrad that I didn't know about. And as I started to work as a nonprofit professional, and as I started to work for my current organization, I started finding out about a lot of things and a lot of resources that help either first generation or low income, or people of color, or just different pockets of folks that don't have this kind of built-in network, in which they may pay for you to take on a unpaid internship. So the organization pays you as opposed to the corporation. And so there's a lot of these things out there. I think that it's really up to organizations like mine to continue to do outreach and partner with universities and partner with other nonprofits to get the word out there. And then it's also up to the students themselves to really dig out these resources, because there's just so many programs and things out there that can be of a lot of value and really useful, that can really help to combat some of these inequities that we're seeing. And then in general, I think it's, again, like a systemic thing. And so as the country is starting to heal, and as we're starting to open back up with COVID, and as we're starting to have these conversations about the economic divide and the racial divides, that more and more things will start popping up.
Yeah, thank you. And how can we find out which nonprofits those are that pay for internships or pay for students to participate in internships? Oh, well, the student just asked that question. But yeah, so how do we find some of those organizations? Is there like a database or?
That's a good question too. So unfortunately, I don't know of like a specific database, but I can definitely give information about my organization. But there's a lot of, sometimes just a Google search is really powerful and helpful. If you start just looking up like organizations that are like intern based, like there's something called Intern X, and it's a program where they help people to get internships, and then they also pay for those folks to have that internship in. And so MLT, we consider ourselves a college to career pipeline organization. So we're helping folks that are in undergrad to navigate kind of the steps and the tools necessary to find gainful employment after people graduate. And so I think right now, 98% of our graduates from our program, when they graduate undergrad, they are signing on to a job that is where they're making $70K or more. And that is really just like, that's making more than most of the country as a 22, 23, 24-year-old. So that's super awesome. But again, I think it's really just going to the Career Center. It's going to just online searches. It's talking to other folks, having those conversations, not being afraid to ask for help, because I think there's kind of this myth that hard work beats out on everything. And that's not necessarily true, because you can go to your job each day and you can put your head down and just get the work done and work really hard and do the work. But if you're not having conversations, if people are not recognizing that you're doing the work, then you'll never move up. If you don't have a mentor or somebody that you can go to for help at work, then you'll never see those dividends there. So you definitely, hard work is a big component of it, but you have to seek out others, and you have to have those conversations. And naturally, I'm not shy person, but I'm not super bubbly, and it's hard for me sometimes to talk to people. And so I really had to get out of that fear of being wrong or the fear of being inadequate. And there's that imposter syndrome sometimes that we have. And I had to really just take a deep dive and reach out and seek people and talk to people. So I know it's not always easy, and I know everyone's not like this social butterfly or this person that's just like a connector, but you kind of have to push yourself just a bit.
Yeah, and I think that brings us right back to what you were talking about with cultural capital. So for instance, like we wouldn't have known about internship or Intern X unless you explained that to us or unless you told us. So it's also through relationship building and having those conversations that we're able to learn more about those nonprofits and organizations that pay for people to participate in internships. And I think, thank you for putting that in the chat. So I definitely think it's also a trend within minoritized communities or first generation students to have that imposter syndrome, because we don't understand really that it's important to have conversations or exactly how to have those conversations. So we can sometimes see it as we're bothering someone or we're imposing on someone, but we don't really sometimes see the mutual benefit of that relationship and conversation, and realize that the person who we're reaching out to is also gaining information from us too. So I think it's definitely more mutual than I think we sometimes realize. But once again, we don't have the cultural capital to know that and to kind of have that instilled within us. So it might naturally make first generation and marginalized students feel a little bit more nervous to have those conversations.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that. I feel like sometimes we're just like, this person is too busy or too important, they don't want to talk to me. And you'd be surprised. People like helping people. People like that makes people feel good when they can, mentor somebody or coach someone or put them in a good position. So definitely never feel like you're bothering somebody. And obviously you need to try to form like organic relationships. You don't want to just keep asking others for things without, trying to build that trust and build, the rapport. But I definitely, like, even when I told you guys that in the spring of my senior year, which was 11 years ago, and I was like in this panic, like, what am I going to do? I started to reach out to professors and to say, hey, can we grab coffee? Can we talk? And so all of those professors that I started to really reach out to, and I maybe, didn't talk to them much during my coursework, but they remembered me. And when I started to engage them more, they were so willing to have a coffee with me and chat. And there's many of those professors to this day I talk to, and they're my references, and they're still kind of in that, the circle that has helped me to find positions and to accelerate my career. So that's something that you guys can think about too, is you guys literally are on a college campus with a lot of people, a lot of very smart, brilliant, talented people. So really leverage the folks that are around you. And I know right now you guys are probably still doing coursework virtually, which is fine too. But as you guys can see, being able to Zoom and Skype and whatever has really opened up doors, because before, if you may not have been able to travel to go meet somebody in person, now you can just say, hey, can we do a Zoom? And this is still as, personal as, maybe grabbing a cup of coffee. I've had Zooms where I'm literally, let's get coffee, and we're watching each other drink coffee and just talking. And then soon, again, we'll be opened back up so you guys can see people in person.
Yeah, I think it's important to note the benefit also of this virtual environment. I think so often we're exhausted from it and we're just kind of stuck in the negatives of it because it has been truly so long that we've been in it. But that is beneficial. For instance, like, we might not have been able to engage you, like, you're in DC, so that might not have been realistic to ask you to come to Connecticut. So definitely allows all of us to make more meaningful connections and to kind of expand our reach too of the professional network that we're growing. So also you mentioned this phenomenal statistic that 98% of grads from MLT programs are making 70K or more. What are some elements of the program that foster that? Is it through like negotiation tactics that are taught? Like what about the program really warrants that?
I'm glad you asked that. So MLT, we have a few different programs, but our bread and butter is our undergraduate program. And so it's 18 months. It starts the fall of your sophomore year. And so how it works is the fall of your sophomore year, you apply. The application process is pretty rigorous because the program itself, it's a tough one, but it's not impossible, and it's not adding to your coursework. It's more professional development resources. So once you apply, if you get in, then you start the spring of your sophomore year, you start doing boot camps, and those are all paid for. So we have corporate partners, we have philanthropic partners who are donating money to us so that we can offer this programming free to students. And so back before COVID, when things were open, for the boot camps, you guys would actually gather in person. And so our cohorts are about 1,000 students for each kind of pocket. And so we work with our corporate partners to host students for these boot camps. So one of our partners is Deloitte, and one of our partners is Target. And so if Target's hosting, we'll fly everybody to Minneapolis because that's where their headquarters are. Or if Salesforce is hosting, then we'll fly everybody to San Francisco. And then so from there, you get to meet the rest of your cohort. You get to be assigned a coach. And so one thing that really sets our program apart from any other program out there is that we have a personalized career coach that is with you throughout the duration of your 18 months and beyond. And so this career coach not only acts as a mentor, because mentorship is important, but the coaching piece is they're telling you exactly the steps you need to take and what you need to do to be able to work in XYZ occupation. So we identify what type of career you want, the steps necessary to take. And so that's kind of the first part of the program. And then you have a monthly assignment each month for the duration of the 18 months. You also, you convene actually 3 times. So you do the boot camp, and then in the fall of your junior year, then we convene everybody again, and you guys do a 1-week seminar. And it's, I think, right before most courses start for college, so you guys wouldn't miss anything. And then that summer of your junior year, then we place you in an internship. So our internships are paid, and they're with a lot of the Fortune 500 companies. Everything from, I can mention Salesforce, Target, Boston Consulting Group, Deloitte. So a lot of these big figures, because you know, sometimes people think like, oh, well, I don't want to work for Target because whatever reason, and that's not saying anything against Target, I love it. But what we don't realize is all of these major companies and corporations, whatever type of thing you want to do, they probably have that position there. If you want to be a graphic designer, if you want to be a social media strategist, if you want to be on the finance side, they literally have it all. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop to really figure out what type of you know, position you would like to have. And so from there, I think our stat is like 99% of our participants go on to being offered a full-time position after they graduate from undergrad. And so the stats are there. It's a really impressive program. I'm not in the day-to-day weeds of the programmatic side. I'm actually a fundraiser. So I'm the one that's talking to these corporations like, hey, can you give us some money so that we can pay for this programming for students? But it's really transformative. If you go to our website, which I put in the chat, you can actually watch some of the testimonials from different students. We work with students from all different universities. There's pockets of students everywhere. And for a long time, our program, it was really word of mouth. So a lot of people did not know about us, but now we're getting a lot more traction. We've been around for 15 years. And it's just a really life-changing program that people have been a part of. You can see some of the alumni testimonials too. Outside of our undergraduate program, we do have something called Mba Prep and Mba PD. So that's for folks that want to go down that financial track. We have a program where we prepare students that want to get an MBA, and then we help them to get into the top 30 business schools, and then we provide support throughout. So yeah, I put it in the chat. If you guys have more questions about MLT, I'm happy to answer. I love my organization so much because we do such great work. So I always transition somehow back to talking about MLT, but it's a really great program, and we work with other nonprofits too that do some similar work. So we're not the only one out there, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you for giving us that thorough explanation. I think, and it definitely touches on every aspect that we have already spoken about today, and how, like, you kind of teach them how to build wealth, like through networking, through having conversations, through connecting them with an internship. So you're giving them and helping them like be successful within that opportunity and coaching them along the way. And it sounds like it's also really, really rounded in support. So it sounds phenomenal on those programs. So I definitely encourage the students in this conversation today to register. But you also mentioned that you're not necessarily involved in the day-to-day, and that you're more so involved in speaking to those organizations. So you also mentioned that you're kind of nervous when talking to people. So how did you kind of realize the importance of that relationship building or building wealth outside of the classroom? And how did you get started and continue on to that in your current position?
So yeah, I definitely get nervous sometimes before I have like a big presentation or before I speak to people. But I always saw this thing, and I don't know who's a Beyonce fan there, but she kind of turns on like Sasha Fierce. So she can turn this switch on where she can almost become like this other person and have these conversations. So I feel like I do, obviously I'm not Flash of Fierce, but I can do like a small segment of that. I have to be able to really turn it on, because I'm pretty much in a position where it's like sales. But my product is I'm selling this amazing organization and program. So I definitely had to, over time, learn how to just turn that switch on. And I think it's also because my time as a student athlete, and I dabbled in some professional athlete stuff, that even when it's game day, you have to like put that game face on and just kind of face your fears. And, you know, you have to get the goal. And the goal is to help other people by bringing in money.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. So definitely, I like what you mentioned about kind of like grounding yourself, and a little bit about the like the purpose of why you're doing, and like using like kind of like your alter ego to kind of bring you through and instill that confidence within yourself. So how did building wealth stay the same or and change after you graduated?
So when I graduated, I was able to find a position right away. It started in the summer of, as soon as, I think I graduated in May on Mother's Day, and then I started my first day in like June of the same year. And so I was pretty lucky in that sense that all that hustling I did for the last semester panned out, but it wasn't necessarily in a career occupation that I saw myself doing or that I thought I would do. But at the time, there was definitely a shortage of teachers. And so I was able to interview multiple interviews. I got the job. And so I actually really love kids. I love students. I love being a coach, and I love working with people, working with young people. So it actually was a really good fit. And I never foresaw myself teaching, but it was something that the base pay was comfortable enough where I was going to be able to live in DC on my own. They had benefits. There was room for growth if I wanted to stay in the education field. And they also were able to pay for some of my masters. And so I think those are kind of things that you look at when you take a position. It's like, not only am I a benefit to this company or this entity, but are they going to be beneficial to me? So I definitely was something that I fell into, and it worked out. And I don't want anyone to ever feel like they have to fall into something, because it may not work out. I think I ended up being lucky, but I think from there, my school that I worked at was attached to a nonprofit because it was a charter school. And so a lot of the charter schools, they are organized as a nonprofit. And so there was this whole other department, which is called development. And so for nonprofits, development is kind of like business ops, sales. And so again, you're reaching out to folks, organization or wealthy people to make donations so that the charter school can stay operational. And so there was a few times when I was a teacher, I had the development staff come to me and say, hey, can you help me write this grant proposal because it's going to help your students and you're more involved in the day-to-day. Can you help? So I started to kind of help with some proposal writing. And then I started to realize like, oh, wow, like I really like this side of the house. And then so that was like a good way for me to segue into like the next part of my career, which is now a nonprofit professional. I work on the philanthropy side, meaning that I help raise money. And so that was kind of like my first taste of it back in like 2012, 2013, when I was a teacher, and they asked me to do that exercise assignment for them. So I definitely think that, you know, where you start may not be where you finish. I still don't know if this is where, you know, I'll finish as a professional, but I definitely think just getting your feet wet and being really observant and finding out other parts of your company or other aspects of your company that you could possibly dabble in, or that you would enjoy, or that you know, you could do. So
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think also it's great that that person came over and asked for your input too. So you were able to use that as an opportunity to grow more as an individual and professionally, and kind of get more in alignment with what you would like to do and what you're doing now. So I'm really glad that that worked out for you, that you were able to gain that early exposure. What mistakes did you make along the way, and what do you wish you could go back and change?
I definitely think that I waited too late to start thinking about my next move, my next step when I was in undergrad. I think that there's this special group of people, it's not me, it's a special group of people that from such a young age, they know exactly what they want to do. They know how they're going to get there. They have this roadmap and they have, you know, they're so driven, and you know who those people are and you're like, dang, like, and unfortunately, I'm a very driven person, but I wasn't laser focused on what I wanted to do. And so I think that's the majority of us, is like, we don't know exactly what careers are out there, what to do, because again, I'm first generation. My parents attended college. They did not graduate. They were only there briefly. So there was a lot of things they couldn't explain to me. They couldn't tell me some stuff. So I had no insider information. I just know what I kind of saw and what I was doing. And I didn't have anyone giving me that additional kind of guidance or support. Of course, they were my cheerleaders, like, yeah, you can do this, but that only goes so much. So I think what everyone can start doing, it's never too late to really start to figure out what it is you want to do, or to be in like a discovery phase of, okay, what occupations are out there? What resources do I already have? What resources do I need? Who can I talk to? Who's already in my circle? Who's not in my circle that I want to reach out to? But I think now, since there's so many, everything is virtual and everything is just automated and everything is online, that LinkedIn and, you know, all these different things where you can just really reach out to folks and start to really gain that insight. I think when I was in undergrad, I don't think LinkedIn was out yet. I think it came out like maybe a year or two after I had graduated. But I think I'm always like a big cheerleader for LinkedIn, because I think that it's really a way to connect with a lot of different type of people. They have job postings on there. But again, start early. Don't wait. Don't waste your time when you're at UConn. It's an amazing university. There's so many resources on campus. There's so many alumni who are here to help. So don't waste that opportunity. Really leverage the folks that are there, because you do have that built-in network. But you just have to reach out to them. You have to utilize them. You have to leverage them.
Absolutely. And I think your advice also applies to students who are nearing the end of their degree or who have graduated. Like, they can still do some research into the industry they're interested in. You can still have those conversations. And it's never too late, but definitely starting early is an advantage, but you can start anywhere. So that's a really key piece of advice you provided.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's never too late.
Thank you. So now we'll kind of transition into the question and answer from the students in the audience. So you mentioned this a little bit. So you mentioned that you think it's important to figure out what you want to do with your degree early on. So this student has no idea what they want to do yet, and they don't know really how to figure it out. Do you have any advice for them?
So I guess my advice for them would be, when you made your choice to go to UConn, what is your end goal? Is your end goal to have a college experience? Is your end goal to eventually do an occupation that you love? Or is your end goal that you want to get into a career that is going to make you a lot of money? So I feel like that's kind of like the first kind of pivot points you have to think about, is like, what is your purpose for attending undergrad? And once you can kind of answer those questions, if you know that, okay, my end goal is when I graduate here, I want to make a lot of money and I want to be able to support my family and I want to be able to buy houses and flip them and do whatever, then you know that you're going to have to probably get into an occupation where people are earning high wages. And that not only is a quick Google search, but that is also starting to talk to career services and figure out like what occupations are out there where people are making a lot of money. And it doesn't have to be a doctor or lawyer, because I think that sometimes we get stuck in that boat, that those are the only two occupations that make a lot of money, when there's like so many others. Investment banking, even as a nonprofit professional now. I think back in the day, people were like, oh, nonprofit people are like kumbaya, they're not making that much money and stuff. Like now they do have competitive salaries. Figuring out, maybe it's a place you really want to work. So I really want to work for Amazon corporate. And so figuring out what positions are available at Amazon corporate, and how you can start to tailor your coursework, and tailor your degree, and tailor your internship experience, so that you can funnel into a position like that. Who do you need to talk to? What certifications do you need to have? So again, it's really taking time to have some self-reflection and some exploratory conversations, so you can figure out what the hell is out there, because there's so much. And I don't want us to get pigeonholed into only thinking that certain occupations make money and others don't, or never, like there's certain occupations I never heard of. I'm like, what is, XYZ? And so I think that you really have to take like a time to do a deep dive, discuss with your family, discuss with your circle, whoever's around you that you feel close enough to start just having those conversations. They may not know the answer, but they may be able to point you in the right direction to find the answer. You have to be very resourceful, and you have to, kind of have some self-reliance too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's fantastic advice. Definitely start off with that self-reflection. That's definitely the basis of what we reflect our career coaching on too. So thank you. So student question, so what does your organization have programs for recent graduates as well? I know you mentioned the MBA program.
Yeah, so if you are no longer able to apply for career prep, which is our undergraduate program, that's the 18-month that starts your sophomore year. For recent grads, if you have a desire to go to business school, then for folks that have just recently graduated, or even if you're years out of undergrad, you would want to look into the Mba Prep and Mba PD programs, which are also really transformative. And those folks are graduating and making even more. They're making in the six figures after graduation. And so that's something you may want to consider too. And I think people think when they get an MBA that you can only work in finance and you're going to be a banker or an accountant, but there's so many other career paths with having a business degree. Everything from tech positions. We have engineers that come through our program, and they're working at Wells Fargo, but they're on the technical side. So there's just a lot of different paths that you can take from having a master's in business.
Thank you. So what did your athletics network look like, and how did it help you, if at all, in the career or job search process?
So I would say that I don't feel like I leveraged my athletic circle as best as I could. I feel like as far as like a personal support system, that was definitely key. And it definitely was having that built-in like friendships and built-in just lifelong friends. I think that if anything, my time as a college athlete, it taught me a lot of just like core values. And I know that it's cliche and people are like, oh, it taught me like hard work and teamwork, but it really does. It really teaches you how to push through with a group of people, or how to meet goals, and how to understand like the metrics behind the goals. So I literally every experience I've had, I can relate it back to my athletic career, and how I've taken something from that. I would say that when I have applied for positions, or if I've had interviews and people find out that I was like a UConn athlete, that does give me some like extra talking points, and it gives me some extra credibility during my interviews. But again, that's not like completely selling them. I have to be able to show the work that I've done, and how I will be a value add to that organization or to that company. But I definitely think that over time, that does catch people's eye when they see my LinkedIn or they see my resume. That is a point of discussion I will do.
Gotcha. Thank you for explaining that a little bit. So still need to have a solid knowledge and understanding of your own skills and experiences as well, in addition to whatever other benefit athletics may bring to that conversation. So also reversing it back a little bit into the MBA program through MOT, does your organization help the students in that program as well with finding internships?
Yeah, so I think I saw a question here, and I think that, okay, yeah, so a few things. So we have something called MBA Prep and MBA PD. So MBA Prep is for people who have not completed their GMAT, they have not actually started applying to schools, or they may have, but they have not selected a school, or they have not been admitted or anything like that. So it's someone like, if today I'm like, okay, I do want to get an MBA, I would start with MBA Prep, because we would prepare you to take the GMAT. We would prepare you through the application process and the interview process of finding a business school that would be a right fit for you. And then on the other leg of that is our Mba Professional Development. And these are folks that have already been accepted into a business school. They may have not necessarily started, or they could have started, but they were giving them that professional development throughout their coursework. And that does also come with like a on-the-job experience. They may not be considered an internship per se, but it could be like a summer apprenticeship. There's certain terminology that business school uses that is a little higher than an internship level, and it also is paid. And you're most likely going to be paid through that company as opposed to being paid through us.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Thank you for answering that question. Does MLT have coaches or opportunities for students who don't want to work in business, like healthcare or education or a nonprofit?
So as far as our postgraduate programs, at this moment, we do not. But our focus for our undergraduate program is financial careers, tech careers, which could all be within a nonprofit setting. It could be within a lot of different settings. You could work at a hospital and still take away what we are offering for those positions. But the reason why we have really stuck to like financial occupations, consulting, tech, is because we found that those are the careers where people can make the most as soon as they graduate from school, and they have a high trajectory. So that means that people that are in those fields, they will, that economic wealth gap that we keep talking about, they're the ones that can eliminate that because they're making a lot more money than normal folks. So that's why we focus on those kind of key areas. We have a marketing track as well. There's a few others too.
Okay, all right, thank you for explaining that. I think that's helpful also to see how students can kind of utilize the skills that are learned within these programs, as opposed to thinking like, oh, I'm not in business or finance, so I won't be interested in it. Because you can truly apply those skills to any field. But that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So how have you stayed in touch with your professors for 11 years? And what do you talk about after you graduate?
Oh, one of my professors that I've over the years have been in contact with is she, I guess, is now the dean of CLAS, and hopefully she doesn't watch this and see that I am wrong about that. But I used to volunteer for Husky Sport. I believe it's still around. And so every year I make sure to donate to Husky Sport. I make sure to be involved. If they have calls like this, I join the calls. Every once in a while, me and the professor, we have a good conversation where we just catch up. And so we're still connected on LinkedIn and emailing back and forth here and there. So that's a way that I kind of have stayed connected, is just making sure that I'm constantly giving back to the or to UConn, and I'm constantly engaging in ways where I'm trying to like, you know, put it forward. So all the people that help me, I'm making sure that I make myself available whenever possible to help other students or other people at school. And so, yeah.
Thank you. So how did you manage your parents' expectations about your studies and your career, especially as a first generation student and as a sociology major?
That's funny because I just saw this meme on Instagram, and it's like, it says something like, my mom is proud of me and she still doesn't know what I do. So I think, especially I don't want to speak for all Black families, but for my Black family, they just were really happy that I went to college and that I graduated. And so I think now we have to continue the conversation like, okay, yeah, you have your degree, but now what are you going to do with your degree? And how are you going to make the world a better place? And how are you going to make your family a better family? And how are you going to create generational wealth? And how are you going to continue to progress? And so, I mean, my parents have always been like big supporters of me, and I feel like I've been a good daughter to them. So that's never been like expectation setting, but that's my own family unit. But I think overall with families, it's just, you know, you may not be able to explain what type of job that you want to, I guess, obtain eventually, because they may not know what that job is. Just like probably a month ago, you may not know what it is. But I think just starting to have open dialogue and seeing like where your family can help if they don't have that, you know, those connections that other families may have, and just keeping them in the loop, and not getting frustrated when people don't understand what it is that you want to do.
Right, because they don't know what they don't know. And like you said, kind of growing up, we have an understanding of, usually we call like students or parents know like those 5 jobs, like the doctor, lawyer, engineer, like they just know those jobs. So I really like the idea of like being compassionate towards them as well, and understanding that they haven't had the same experience as you. And also jobs are changing, jobs are popping up out of nowhere, jobs exist that didn't. So definitely it's a conversation that could be ongoing. So wait,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I will say that like all growing up and stuff, and even now, my parents have always been like, just go work for the government. It's like, it's stable work. You get benefits, you get a pension when you, you know, are done, and just go work for the government. And so that's kind of what they always preached to me. And I had to, and I think for most people in our age range of millennials and Gen Z, it's kind of like this thing where every 3 years people leave their job and they get a different job, and it's kind of like this cycle that happens. I don't know too many of my peers that have stayed at the same job for like 10 years. I feel like there's kind of like this 3 to 4 years where you kind of cycle through, and I think organizations and companies are understanding of that it's a you know, it comes full circle and people cycle in and out. And I had to really explain it to my parents. Like when I'd be like, oh, I got a new job, they'd be like, wait, like you got to stay at your job for 25 years. And that's just no longer the case. And you may stay at the same organization, but you're probably not going to have the same position for 25 years. It's just not how the global infrastructure of the workplace is made up.
Yeah, we definitely see that on our end too. Like it's constantly changing. Students are changing jobs like very frequently, but it's also like you have to keep growing. Like you want to keep growing, like you want different experiences. And it's so much more normalized. Whereas like our parents probably stayed in that job for 25 years and then they retired. And then that's just the trajectory that they know. The times have definitely changed. Yeah, so this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all of your advice and your perspective today. So if we want to stay in touch with you, how can we do that?
Yeah, so I will drop my email in the chat. I'll give you guys my personal email, just so y'all have it. You guys can feel free to reach out to me at any time. You guys can find me on LinkedIn, and if you guys want to ever just ping me in DM. But I'm here to help, and I'm here just to be a support to any student that has questions, because again, like I still have a long way to go, But I definitely want people to learn from the mistakes that I've made. And I also want just to give any advice and guidance that I can.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for committing your time with us and spending it with us today. So if you'd like to sign up for remaining sessions for the Advice and Perspective series, there'll be a link in the chat momentarily to sign up for the remaining sessions. We have 2 more. Also, be sure to check out the Husky Mentor Network, where you can have career conversations with alumni such as Chauntay. And also feel free to schedule a career coaching appointment with our office to discuss your specific career journey or any questions that you might have.